Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I am your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, how is it going today? It is Super Bowl Sunday, and you know what that means. Baseball is officially back in like 12 hours from when we're recording this, maybe a little sooner, actually. Yeah, everyone knows as soon as the Super Bowl wraps up, that's when it's baseball time. Pitchers and catchers might be reporting this week, which is really just, that's the official start of the season, is when all the planes land in Florida and Arizona. And it really all starts when the clock hits 0 on the Super Bowl, and that's what we get to experience later tonight.
Yeah, I know. Like Monday after the Super Bowl, I'm going crazy with it. I got the four screens on my laptop.
That's the lead on Sports Center.
Yeah, I got the four screens on my laptop. I got baseball. I got a baseball game on the TV. Granted, it's all either a screening of MLB Network or like a classic game from like 5 years ago, but I am watching baseball, so that does mean it is baseball season.
Yeah. And it all ends right there.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, with the Super Bowl being moved back a week, like back when the NFL made it a 17-game season, it moved baseball back a week, moved baseball season back a week, which was a real shame, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So,
Rob Manfred was not happy about that one.
Yeah, no, it's
he's like, only I can postpone games like I did, or I tried to do a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It's just it felt like the NFL was, stealing their thunder, and yeah, it's just but yeah, it is unfortunate we have one less week of baseball season because of, the Super Bowl being moved back 1 week about 3 or 4 years ago. But it is, we do feel grateful when baseball season does come back. Obviously February 10th this year is when it comes back.
Yes.
Before any of the spring training games start or any regular season games start, that's when baseball season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, because of that, we got a lot to talk about. We had two of the three big remaining free agents went off the board in the last week. Two reunions, if you will. One of them directly a reunion, and one of them, a one team ago reunion. But Jack Flaherty returned to the Tigers, Pete Alonso returning to the Mets, both on 2-year deals with opt-outs. Would you want to start talking about Jack Flaherty?
Yeah, for sure. I do think he was the the better option of these two, like in generally speaking terms. Yeah, he signs a 2-year, $35 million deal. But it's a little bit misleading because he will get 25 million the first year, and I think the likelihood of him, getting the second year of the contract is very low. Because yeah, he would have the option to opt out after the first year. And yeah, so he gets 2 years, 35 million. I'm personally excited about this for Jack Flaherty, because this is where he had his career resurgence. He greatly improved pretty much all aspects of his game, whether that be strikeout rate, walk rate, and even with the home runs, he's going to a ballpark where, that's the best at preventing them. So that's why I thought this would be a great option for the Tigers, because, and for Jack Flaherty himself is, if you are going to take a pseudo 1-year deal like this and, sort of test yourself and try to put yourself back on the market, what better place than Detroit? Because that's where you had that career resurgence. That's where you had your best numbers, and that's the ballpark that's going to suit best to you. So I really like this for both sides here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind looking at the details of this contract and the way that it all came together, I think it could be very comparable to what we saw out of Blake Snell last year, where he has the Cy Young season in 2023 that kind of came out of left field that people questioned the sustainability of, and for that reason, no one was really willing to bite in free agency. So he gets the 1+1 with the Giants, goes out and doubles down on that success and is able to get the big contract that he was hoping for. I think we could see something like that out of Jack Flaherty this year. You know, it was the best season that he had had since 2019. The strikeout rate went way up. The walk rate went way down. Playing in Detroit was able to limit his home runs, not to the best degree, but to, a fine enough degree given what all the other stuff looked like. And despite that, despite the 3.17 ERA and in 162 innings with two teams with nearly 200 strikeouts, this is the contract that we saw out of him. But I think if he goes out and does this again, we could go see him, enter free agency going into age 30. We could see him get, like Blake Snell, a 5-year deal, north of 150, 160, 170 million. I mean, I think that's very possible. All he has to do is kind of the same thing that he did last year. And Detroit would be a very good place for him to do that, given that he's already shown that he's comfortable there. The fit makes sense. He knows that, that pitching development team over there. And they've obviously done some very good things for him.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, like speaking in the hypothetical where he does go on the market next year, he'd be going in 2 years younger than Blake Snell. So
Mm-hmm.
that obviously would be an advantage for Jack Flaherty. And yeah, no, I think if he's with Detroit the whole year, I would be very confident that he would get a 5+ year deal on the market if he sticks it out and has a similar year to this past year. He doesn't even have to really. I don't even think he really has to top what he did last year or maybe even match what he did last year. He just has to kind of be around that level in order to get a longer term deal because yeah, I mean look at someone like Max Fried this past offseason. He had a 3.25 ERA, like maybe a FIP in the upper threes, I think. He wasn't really dominant, but he had a very, very good track record before that. So, teams trusted him and he got an 8-year deal to take him through his age 38 season. It doesn't, you don't necessarily have to dominate the year entering free agency if you have a trustworthy track record. So if Flaherty can boost that by just kind of being at around this level this upcoming year, I see a good future for him on the free agent market. I think this free agent market for him was kind of predictable, considering it was a random year. But yeah, if he goes out and repeats success like Blake Snell did, this very good parallel like Blake Snell did in 2024. Yeah, I see a similar result for Jack Flaherty.
And not only that, but he has a chance to really establish himself as one of the more durable guys this year. If he can, let's just say, qualify for the ERA title, like we'll put the minimum at exactly the number of innings he pitched last year at 162, he would be coming off of 3 straight seasons pitching 140 plus innings. And Jack Flaherty's had his injury troubles throughout his career. He's had plenty of time where he's missed his time on the mound, likely mostly between like 2020 to 22. But if he can qualify again, that's 3 straight years in his late 20s where he's minimized the time that he's missed with injury. And obviously, it goes without saying how valuable that is, in today's game. And if you can combo that with really nice strikeout to walk numbers like he has, a very good breaking ball that produced, 12 run value out of his knuckle curve last year, like that could be something really special.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, I really it's with this deal, I can't see much negative. Obviously, like, if Jack Flaherty was getting um long-term offers this past offseason, I could see how this could be disappointing for him. But I don't know if he was really getting that, or at least to the dollar value that he was hoping to be offered. So I think this is good. I think this is good for both sides because, I'm confident Jack Flaherty with the Tigers can go out and perform like this. If you were to, obviously as a Red Sox fan, I would have loved if they got him. But if he were to sign with someone like Boston, like a more of a hitter's park, I could see sort of maybe a fall off maybe happening. But with Detroit, not only because of the ballpark, but because of whatever they had, whatever analytical departments or coaching that helped him out, helped him become a dominant pitcher again. I see that marriage being successful once again. But yeah.
Not only
And
that, but I think this fills just such a clear need for Detroit. They needed a defined number two starter behind Skubal. They needed to add two, pitchers to their rotation this offseason. They expected to get a lot of innings, and they were able to do that with Flaherty and then with Alex Cobb as well. I mean, I know that he's coming off of a very injury riddled, he's just coming off Tommy John surgery, right? But um, he's a ground ball guy. It makes sense to, throw him in there as an innings eater. You're probably hoping that Jackson Joe will develop his way into the rotation as a regular this season. Like they have the depth options. Like this, I think really puts a bow on the rotation coming into this year, something that they needed to maintain because, although their best success last year came when they didn't really have a rotation, it kind of just shows, imagine how much better it could have been if they didn't have to throw out Kiter Montero like every 3 games to throw once through the order.
yeah, right, exactly. Um, yeah, I think it makes this team a lot more serious, and a
Mhm.
lot more, you know, not only within the division race, but in the playoffs. Obviously last year there were some doubts around the rotation because it was really Scooble and then kind of everybody else being,
Pitching chaos.
yeah, pitching chaos, as famously talked about. Um, but yeah, now there's um two pitchers of really high stature in that rotation, and could really pose a threat in the playoffs if they make it for sure. And it'll definitely increase their chances of going to the playoffs having Jack Flaherty. But yeah, and just looking at the Tigers' roster as a whole, they didn't really lose anybody significant this past year. And uh they added Alex Cobb, Jack Flaherty. We'll see how the
Glaber
Gleyber
Torres.
Torres addition goes. But uh, but yeah, I mean, with this AL Central, there's really no clear-cut, obvious favorite to win the division. So I think the Tigers have just as good a chance, and if not better chance than anybody out there in this division.
Yeah. Also, just a general thing. Shout out to the Tigers for turning Jack Flaherty into Theron Lorenzo and Trey Sweeney, and then getting him back, pulling the classic Yankees or Aldis Chapman thing. Fittingly, Gleyber Torres is on this team as well. And I always love when a team's able to do that. Make a really nice trade for someone, get a nice return for someone at the trade deadline, and then sign them back the next year. So it's cool to see when that happens. And yeah, I mean, can you think of a better win-win trade than that one? Like Jack Flaherty gets traded, gets a ring. The Dodgers get a much-needed starting pitcher to fill out their rotation because I know that he had some blow-up starts, but it's hard to argue the Dodgers still win the World Series if someone else is pitching in place of Jack Flaherty in those games.
Yeah, I would think so, because yeah, he definitely I think he had two pretty solid performances
He
that.
was the game one starter at some point, was he not? It was in was it game one? He was the game one
Yeah,
starter, World Series.
yeah. Um, and yeah, some of those starts could have gone better, but in terms of
Mhm.
other options that the Dodgers had, his blow up starts might have been still better than other
Yeah.
pitchers' blow up
Think
starts.
about think about Lance Lynn.
Yeah, exactly. So, even if he didn't have the greatest postseason as a whole, he was probably still better than some of those better options, or some of those other options, excuse me. But yeah, going back to it, like in sum, I think if Jack Flaherty went to another team on this deal, I'd be kind of wondering, like, okay, what direction is he going to go? Because he's back with the Tigers, who we had tremendous numbers with. I mean, I think it was like a 25% strikeout minus walk rate with the team, 26%
Yeah.
strikeout minus walk rate with the Tigers, which is unreal. because he's back with them, I really have trust in him perform to perform to an ability to earn himself a very, very good contract when next offseason comes around. But yeah, did you have anything else on the Jack Flaherty deal?
No, I think that was kind of everything. I think we touched all the bases there.
Yeah, we're big fans of it. Um, but but yeah, and on to the Pete Alonso signing. That was that kind of came around in the middle of the week, and yeah, he signs a 2-year, $54 million deal with an opt-out after 2025 with the New York Mets. Um, you know, let's get that Photoshop of him in the Mets uniform. Hey, hey. But yeah, he signs with the Mets. It's a lot of people were confident in it happening at some point, and it happened. So yeah, what did you think about this signing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sum of this free agency for Pete Alonso was he really did just simply want to be a Met. I don't know if he had better offers. I don't know what other teams were calling about. Um, there are a lot of teams that I'm very surprised weren't more active in the sweepstakes for him. I think the answer for him was always I wanted to go back to the Mets, right? I mean, he's been one of the faces of the franchise for a long time. Would he become the longest tenured? Is he the longest tenured player in the Mets at this point? It's probably Nimmo. It's definitely Nimmo, but he's one of them. Uh, he came up, won Rookie of the Year, has the rookie home run record. Um, I'd say his status as the face of the franchise has been passed to Lindor and then later Soto. But regardless, he's a staple in New York. He's one of the more well-known kind of guys that you associate with the Mets. And, we've talked about his value and what we really think of him as a player before. But regardless, I mean, this is where he was meant to be. I feel like he could be one of those guys that just was meant to play for one team and uh just maybe doesn't perform as well if he goes somewhere else, regardless of where that is, no matter how much it might have made sense.
Yeah, it seemed like yeah, there was a reunion was a reunion was definitely very possible, and yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, it's hard not to think about kind of how badly Scott Boras kind of flubbed this.
I don't think
Um
it's Scott Boras.
or yeah, or
It's
how Pete Alonso
Pete
flubbed this.
Alonso was offered 7 years and 158 million. He declined it, fired his agent, and then hired Scott Boras.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that was the case.
Yeah, so
Um
I wouldn't blame this one on Boris. If you want to blame Boris for Alex Bregman, that's fine. I think Pete Alonso kind of did that to himself. But you know what? Like maybe I mean it sucks for Pete Alonso that he lost out on $104 million. I don't think the Mets get Soto if they sign that deal.
yeah, it definitely decreases the chances quite a bit. Um yeah, it's but yeah, like on that level, yeah, it's interesting to think about like what he thought, his value was, and unfortunately this past year, he he rejected that offer heading into the 2024 season
Yes. It was like in the middle of 2023.
in the middle of 20, okay, so yeah,
Maybe it was spring training 2023. It was sometime in the fiscal year 2023 for sure.
that's interesting to me because even with a deal with him having 2 years of control left, you'd expect the deal to be on the cheaper side, or cheaper than, a potential free agent contract um because yeah, but I guess he was coming off a pretty good, like, one of his better years of his career, so that's why he
Mm,
rejected it. And actually probably yeah, he was like a 4-win player at that point, so
yeah. So it
I
made
guess
sense.
I guess it did make sense at the time. But yeah, if it was heading into 2024 or if it was this past off season, then yeah, that would have been kind of silly to reject. But considering it was after the 2022 season, it's not as profound. So I guess my take on that is uh kind of whittled down now because it doesn't have as much power because it was actually when he was maybe a top 5 first baseman in the game.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like I think it definitely works out great for the Mets because now they get kind of like I feel like they kind of got everyone they wanted.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
mean they re-signed Sean Manaea. They made some upgrades to the rotation with Frankie Montas, maybe with Clay Holmes. We'll see how that works out. They added AJ Minter to the bullpen. Obviously, they added Soto. They re-signed Jesse Winker. A more also, I like that this deal puts Mark Vientos back at third.
yeah, yeah, for
They don't
sure.
have to worry about playing Brett Beatty out there, who I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if they're still really in belief of him or not, but
Yeah, the Mets are trying to compete for a World Series, so you don't want to have guys in your lineup that you're kind of like trying to stay patient with. If
mhm.
you're in win now mode, you want you want guys who can go out there and play, and that's the case with talk say what you will about Pete Alonso, but you're definitely more confident in Pete Alonso than you are Brett Beatty.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely good for them. I think this lineup has the potential to do a lot of cool things. Just kind of looking at them. Yeah, it's Lindor, Soto, Alonso at the top. I mean, that's very, very cool. Nimmo had some bad luck last year. He can kind of recorrect in some way and maybe get back to like a 120 OPS plus. Mark Vientos showed great signs last year. He was at an OPS plus, I think, near 130. Um, and then yeah, like Francisco Alvarez, he's still very young and developing and could break out. Yeah, there's some things that can happen, and yeah, even like Luis Angel Acuna. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get this year, but uh, yeah, we saw some good signs out of him last year too. So yeah, it's pretty exciting what the Mets can do this year. Like this is probably the most one of the more optimistic we've been about the Mets since we've been on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is definitely the highest preseason expectations they've ever had. Uh, well, definitely in the Cohen era for sure, but I think you could probably go beyond that to like our lifetimes in general.
Yeah, probably. Um, but yeah, did you have anything more on the Alonso deal?
No, I really did not.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really just we got one left, one guy left
Yeah,
in terms of
waiting on
significant pieces.
waiting on Alex Bregman, and then after that, it's like Nick Pivetta, who
Oh yeah, right. He's
poor.
still
I
on the
mean,
market.
man, should have taken the qualifying offer, but
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm really happy he didn't. But
well,
yeah,
we're gonna. I mean, honestly, at this point, I would be surprised if he just doesn't sign until opening day because the team doesn't want to lose the pick.
oh yeah, no, I
He's
mean
gonna
it's
he's gonna sign the second somebody goes down after opening day.
exactly.
Like whoever the first pitcher is to get Tommy John surgery after March 27th, that's where Nick Pivetta's going,
Yeah, exactly.
at least on a contending team.
For sure, for sure. But but yeah, that leads us into our eighth top 10 list. It is right field, and this is it for position players,
Yeah,
as we have done all the other parts of the diamond. We've done catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, left field, and center field. And yeah, we have right field this week, and then
which
we got
is
the two pitcher lists following, which is which is fun. We know we're gonna be talking about some really cool numbers with all three of these upcoming lists, because right field is pretty stacked. I'd say behind shortstop, it's the most stacked position among the
yeah,
position players. Because yeah, it seemed like all the good outfielders moved to right field except for like Jackson Merrill, Julio Rodriguez, Jaron Duran, and like Mike Trout.
yeah.
Everyone else seems to be in right field. Um, but yes, so yeah, if you want to check out the other list before this, go to the 2025 positional rankings playlist on the Above Replacement Radio YouTube channel. And for context, we're talking about what we think these players will do in 2025. And going based off past performance a little bit, but as context for what we think they will do in 2025. So we'll look at some more underlying numbers like average exit velocity, barrel rate, strikeout rate, walk rate, whiff rate, chase rate, stuff like that, that kind of points to their underlying trends and how that will maybe transfer over to performance and how it can transfer over to their potential. And then lastly, we know that Anthony Santander is probably going to be a left fielder for the Blue Jays this year, but because we did the left field list before he signed and he was, sort of a projected right fielder before that signing, we're going to stick him in the right field list because he since we didn't include him in the left field list, we should have him on, considered for some lists and not completely forget about him altogether, if we do end up putting him on these lists. So, yeah, that should do it for all the housekeeping. Who do you have at number 10 on the top 10 right fielders for 2025?
Yeah, that's right. So on this list, for context, I have 5 returners to the right field list. Additionally, 2 people that were on on different lists from last year. I actually have my number 1 left fielder and my number 1 center fielder from last year on the right field list, just to show you how stacked the position is. So starting in at number 10 is one of my newcomers, a guy who had a really solid rookie season. I argue probably should have won Rookie of the Year, but regardless, he performed very well. A 4-win season at age 24. Talking about Colton Cowser from the Baltimore Orioles. Started out very strong in April, finished strong in September, and in between, we found him with a 13.6% barrel rate, a 768 OPS, additionally 11 outs above average. He did largely play left field last year, but he is going to be switching to right field this year, according to the Fangraphs roster resource, with Tyler O'Neill coming in for Baltimore. I really like what I saw out of him last year. The offense was, I would say, it was good. It wasn't outstanding, on an overall basis, right? He was league average for OBP, above league average for slugging, and overall finish with an OPS plus, or a weighted runs created plus, in the 120s. So very solid. But on top of that, you saw good base running. You saw elite defense, also elite arm strength. He had 96th percentile arm strength and average throwing speed of 93.1 miles per hour. So, a very good all-around season. You also saw a low chase rate out of him. You saw a decently high walk rate. He was hitting the ball very well. And then also, a 30% fly ball rate. That's always something that I like to see. He wasn't pulling it that often, but I think that's something that he could improve upon this coming year. Cowser was one of just 15 hitters in 2024 to have a 93 mile per hour average exit velocity and a 20% whiff rate or lower on all fastballs. So four seamers, cutters, and sinkers. Only 14 other qualified hitters had a 93 mile per hour average exit velocity and a 20% whiff rate or lower. And that's minimum 1,000 fastballs seen total. And that's obviously the pitches you're going to see the most of. I liked what I saw out of him there. So for me, it was enough to keep him on the list. This is a very talented list, like we mentioned. Colton Cowser is number 10 for me going into his age 25 season and his second full season.
Yeah, I'm gonna match you on that because I also have Colton Cowser at my number 10, as my number 10 right fielder for 2025. He is heading into his age 25 season, coming off a Rookie of the Year runner-up campaign. I also believe he should have won this past year, but alas, he also ranked 5th among current right fielders in F4 last year. And he led all primary corner outfielders in outs above average in 2024. That's left fielders and right fielders where he had the most outs above average in 2024. And that was also while putting up a 123 OPS plus. Very productive on both ends. He was 62nd percentile in expected WOBA, 69th percentile in expected slugging, and 90th percentile in barrel rate. And yeah, he showed great signs in his rookie year. I don't really, I'm kind of waiting to fully buy in on him. But if he kind of repeats success, he probably goes up this list. And yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing where he goes from here because, with that exit velocity, barrel rate, and with some reduction in strikeout rate, he could really be an elite player, or at least has the potential to be an elite player. So yeah, Colton Cowser's my number 10. Who's your number 9?
Yeah, number 9, I'm going from a current Oriole to a former one, guy who just left this offseason in free agency within the division. Talking about Anthony Santander. He might be playing left field this year, but for the purpose of making sure that we acknowledge him, he's going on the right field list because he did play there primarily last year in Baltimore. 44 home run season, a really solid, you know, contract year for Anthony Santander, and the all the underlying numbers followed, right? A 445 expected slugging, an 11.7% barrel rate. That expected slugging might seem low, and that's because Anthony Santander pulled at least 39% of his fly balls last year, which was the best out of anyone that I had on this list. And that's gonna probably take down a bit of your expected numbers because of the way that they work. That's a whole other thing. Other than that, he also, for a guy that hit 44 home runs last year, makes very good contact. He whiffed 20% of the time, struck out only 19.4% of the time, both of them well below the major league average. The defense was passable. Only a -2 outs above average. It's not great, but we've certainly seen worse out of plenty of guys. A 33% fly ball rate. I like any power hitter that has a fly ball rate that's higher than their ground ball rate, and that's exactly what Anthony Santander did last year. And he's come very close to doing that in the last few years as well. So it's something that I think can be very sustainable. I like the fit in Toronto. I think it makes sense. According to StatCast, he would actually hit more home runs playing every game in Toronto than he would have in Baltimore, which is not something that you see a whole lot from lefties, but he would have hit 37 in Baltimore, 39 in Toronto. Anthony Santander and Yordan Alvarez were the only qualifying hitters to be 75th percentile in 2024 or higher in both whiff rate and barrel rate. So two skill sets that aren't always mutually exclusive. It was only those two that were able to do it last year. So Santander is number 9 on my list.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, as you kind of implied there, like usually you have to sacrifice one with the other.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Anthony Santander was able to do both very well. I also have Anthony Santander at number 9. He is heading into his age 30 season. He ranked 8th among current right fielders in F4 last year, and he ranked 7th over the last 2 years. He has a 127 OPS plus over the last 2 years, and he ranks 5th in OPS, 4th in weighted runs created plus, and 4th in slugging among current qualified right fielders over the last 2 years. And as you kind of talked about that, pulled fly ball rate out of 87 hitters with 400 plus batted balls last year, Anthony Santander had the second highest rate of batted balls being pulled fly balls, and also out of 94 hitters with 750 plus batted balls over the last 2 years, he has the 4th highest rate of batted balls being pulled fly balls. So that kind of, he has historically kind of outperformed his expected metrics a little bit, or at least he did last year. And that's not necessarily something to worry about because his pulled fly ball rate is so high that he is able to outperform his expected metrics without luck being necessarily that much of a factor. And the last thing with Anthony Santander is you can kind of rely on him to stay on the field, or at least historically you have been. He's played over 150 games each of the last 3 years. So his ability to stay on the field, I think that's part of what got him a 5-year deal is, he's not someone who's necessarily the talent of someone who gets a 5-year deal, but since he stays on the field, I think that's and he's also only heading into his age 30 season. I think that's why the Blue Jays signed him up for 5 years. But yeah, Anthony Santander, also my number 9. Who is your number 8?
Yeah, my number 8 is one of the more uh, outstanding breakouts that we saw last year, both in unexpectedness and just the quality of play that we saw out of him down the stretch last summer. I'm talking about Lawrence Butler from the Athletics. who balled out last year, especially late in the season, had a 3 home run game, I believe, heading into the All-Star break and kind of carried that momentum throughout the rest of the season. He ended up slashing 262, 317, 490 for an 807 OPS, and, doing much stronger from July on. We saw him hit the ball very well and kind of, all the essential qualities that you want to see in a power hitter, right? He was hitting the ball with an average exit velocity above 91 miles an hour, barreling the ball over 10% of the time. The bat speed was 74 miles per hour, nearly averaging a fast swing, which is really solid, something that I love to see. Strikeout rate wasn't actually too bad. It was 23.9%, which is a little bit above the major league average, but it got better as the season went on. I'll get to that later. Not only that, but we also saw him with a 35% sweet spot rate. That's something that, combos really well with power is, hitting the ball at the optimal angles, a 26% line drive rate and a 26.3% fly ball rate, both excellent numbers for Lawrence Butler. From March through June, he had a 30.7% strikeout rate. And from July through September, that dropped to 20.6%. It was a 10.1% drop in strikeout rate between, those two spans. And in that same span, his barrel rate went from 6.7% to 12.8%. So he was hitting the ball more and hitting it better. And as a result, you saw, one of the best players in the second half of last season. I'm very intrigued to see what kind of impact playing at Sutter Health Park will do for him. It's kind of all unknown at this point, but the PCL usually tends to be very offense heavy. Of course, you're going to see major league pitching and not AAA pitching there, but it's something that I'll be watching for next season. Lawrence Butler had an outstanding season last year, and he is debuting on my list here, and he is my number 8 right fielder.
Yeah. And yeah, I forgot to mention my my number 10 and number 9 were both newcomers, Colton Cowser and
Santander
yeah.
was my number 10 last year.
Yeah, Colton Cowser and Anthony Santander were both not on my list last year. And at number 8, I have another newcomer. I have Teoscar Hernandez. He is heading into his age 32 season. He ranked 7th among current right fielders in F4 last year and ranked 6th over the last 3 years. He's put up 530 plus plate appearances and an OPS plus above 125 every non-Seattle year since 2020. I think there's kind of a curse in Seattle, so I think non-Seattle years is a justified metric. But yeah, each of the last 5 years, except for his year with the Mariners, he's put up 530 plus plate appearances and an OPS plus above 125. He is averaging -4 outs above average per year since 2022, which does bring him down this list. But his consistent quality hitting gets him onto it. If you can bank on someone being at least 25% above average at the plate every year, that is really something good to go off of. And last year it played a great factor. I think he was in the 130s, and even though he had -9 outs above average, he was still able to be I think a 3.5 win player according to Fangraphs. So yeah, Teoscar Hernandez is my number 8. Who do you have at number 7?
At number 7, everyone from here on out is not a newcomer. I only had 2 newcomers on this list. My number 7 was actually number 10 on my center field list last year. I forgot that I put him, but I absolutely did, and it seemed like it paid off. Despite the fact that he had never played a major league game when I put him on this list. I'm talking about Jackson Chourio from the Milwaukee Brewers. Had an outstanding second half of the season, and I think really showed why at 20 years old he was viewed as such a highly touted prospect as a teenager. Because we really kind of saw everything out of him last year. A 2020 season at age 20, that's, obviously pretty awesome. 21 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 5 outs above average. And also 97th percentile sprint speed, nearly 30 feet per second on average at 29.7 feet per second. So, he was good at everything last year, right? We saw 85th percentile or higher in batting run value, base running run value, and fielding run value out of Chourio last year. And much like Lawrence Butler, he's a guy that started out slow in the first half and really figured himself out as the season went on. 43.5% of Chourio's batted balls from March through June were line drives and fly balls, which is exactly what you want to be hitting. That number went to 51.9% from July through September. So it went from 43.5% to 51.9%, an 8.4% increase in line drive and fly ball rates. The hard hit rate on line drives and fly balls over the span also went from 48.1% to 57%. So not only was he hitting more line drives and fly balls, he was hitting them with much more authority. And that's how you saw the results that you saw out of him later in the season. Certainly there's much to improve on, but I mean, going into age 21, he's already set the bar so high for himself. And he has the potential to climb this list quite significantly next year. I think it's interesting that like I put Wyatt Langford #1 on my left field list, Jackson Chourio #7 on my right field list. I think it really just speaks more to how stacked right field is, because I think if Jackson Chourio was on the left field list, we'd see him at least in the top 4. Maybe I'd even put him #1. This is a very, very good player with a lot of upside going into age 21. And I'm very excited to see what it looks like next year. He's my #7 on this list.
Yeah, yeah. My #7, and this may be a take here. But I think I'm just kind of thinking more conservatively about this player this year, considering a variety of factors. I have Ronald Acuna Jr. at #7, as for right fielders in 2025. He was my #1 right fielder last year. And yeah, kind of breaking it down, he's heading into his age 27 season. He only played 49 games last year. I think most people know the story. He tore his ACL in 2021, and then he tore his other ACL in 2024, and somehow had a MVP season between those two. And yeah, with Ronald Acuna Jr. and his 2025, it is hard not to think about his 2022 season when analyzing what he did, what he's going to do this year, because that 2022 season was the year after he tore his ACL in 2021. He kind of like this upcoming year, he started the year late, eventually went DH, and then eventually played. And, he had like he posted a 112 OPS plus in that year. He wasn't a bad player, but he wasn't, at that quite that Ronald Acuna Jr. level. And I think there's potential that we kind of see a similar year this year. But yeah, regarding trends from last year in the short time that he had on the field last year, his strikeout rate and average exit velocity went back near career averages. It did seem kind of weird that his strikeout rate was cut in half from 2022 to 2023. It seemed like, maybe that's not exactly what he's going to do long term. And that was kind of proven in 2024 as it went back to, his strikeout rate went from 11% to over 20%. And yeah, those strikeout rate numbers and average exit velocity numbers were 100th and 97th percentile in 2023. So they were a big part of why he was good in 2023. So yeah, those being back to normal kind of brings him back to below that MVP tier, I guess, if those kind of remain at that level. And yeah, he's also supposed to start the year on the IL this year. So I probably have guys above him who might be worse on a rate basis, but will have a more productive season overall. If I might have guys who I think will have a better season in 150 games as opposed to Ronald Acuna Jr.'s maybe 130 games. So with him starting on the IL, that kind of brings him down the list, because I think he'll have less time to get the overall results. So yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr., he's my #7. I still think he'll have a good year this year, but he's my #7 on this list of very, very talented players. Who do you have at #6?
Yeah, that is certainly a take to have him at #7. But I'm really not that far off from you on that, because I have Ronald Acuna Jr. as my #6 on this same list. I think a large part of it is simply because he's eyeing an early May return. So you're automatically taking out 1 month of production from him. And, on this list, missing a month guaranteed, means there's going to be a lot of people that naturally are probably going to surpass you in terms of total value produced throughout the year. But Ronald Acuna Jr., I still think is a very talented player. Obviously, we did see a quite major step down from 2023 in the time that we did see him on the field last year. But a lot of the essentials were still there. The average exit velocity, although it dropped 2.5 miles per hour, was still at 92.2 miles per hour. The expected WOBA was 350. The average bat speed was among the top in all of Major League Baseball, 76.8 mile per hour. The chase rate was also way down at 21%. It actually dropped from last year, which was very nice. But obviously we did certainly see a regression. Ronald Acuna Jr. saw 65.4% total fastballs in 2024. 65% of pitches he saw were fastballs, whether they be four seamers, sinkers, or cutters. And that was the second highest rate among the 372 hitters to see at least 750 total pitches. His whiff rate rose on fastballs, rose nearly 13% from 2023, and his average exit velocity went from 94 miles per hour to 90 miles an hour. It went down 4 miles an hour between the 2 years. So there are certainly plenty of reasons to justify putting 5 people above him at his position alone, despite how talented he is and despite what he did in 2023. But you have to justify it somehow, and there's plenty of ways to do so between the drop in production last year, the time that he's going to miss this year. I could still see him putting up a 5, maybe 6 win season if he performs to his peak. And I think that would justify putting him at 6, but that's where I have him right now. So you and I are pretty similar on Ronald Acuna Jr. Not exactly the same place, but we have the same idea when evaluating him in 2025.
Yeah, right. Like, if someone were to just glance at a list and be like, how can you put, Ronald Acuna Jr. at number 6? But given the context of everything and coming off an ACL surgery and missing time, it does make a lot more sense. And yeah, like I'm sure heading into 2026, he'll probably be higher on this list. I would expect that. But yeah, for 2025, like, yeah, I'm thinking conservatively, on a Acuna scale, I'm thinking conservatively with him. My number 6 is actually Fernando Tatis Jr. He was my number 4 last year. But regarding that, I probably don't think that differently of him this year. It's just that there's 2 guys above him who weren't on this list last year. So like if those guys were at the positions as they were projected to be at last year, Fernando Tatis Jr. would be number 4 again. So I kind of think similarly about Fernando Tatis Jr. this year as I did last year, and that's probably going to be reflected in the ARR top 50, or the Gianta 50 specifically. But Fernando Tatis Jr. is heading into his age 26 season. He missed 60 games last year, but still ranks 6th among current right fielders in F4 over the last 2 years. And yeah, Fernando Tatis Jr. is extremely hard to evaluate. He was in the 92nd percentile in barrel rate last year and 96th percentile or higher in average exit velocity and all expected categories. However, he underperformed those expected numbers for a second year in a row due to a low rate of fly balls being pulled. So yeah, looking at his Savant page, you'd expect him to be an elite hitter, but and he was still a very good hitter, but not necessarily at the level you'd expect him to be at based on those underlying metrics. It's just he does not pull very many of his fly balls, and he, because some of his best contact is hit to deeper parts of the ballpark, he doesn't get rewarded as much for how hard he hits the ball. And his defensive value also decreased from 2023 to 2024. He had a +2 defensive run value in 2024, but it was +12 in 2023, and he won a Gold Glove in that year. He also went from 29 stolen bases to 11 from 2023 to 2024. Ratio-wise, he went from stealing a base every 4.9 games to every 9.3 games. But yeah, overall, I expect kind of similar hitting statistics. He was at a 130 OPS plus last year. I kind of expected to be around that level this year. And I also expect some improvements in defense and base running. I think he's going to find a balance between his between his defense and base running in 2023 and his defense and base running in 2024. And yeah, I think that would put him around like 5 FWAR this season. So that puts him at number 6 for me. But yeah, who do you have at number 5?
Number 5, this is where I put Fernando Tatis Jr. So like Acuna, you and I are one spot off on him. Uh, Yeah, I mean, I think I share a lot of the same sentiment that you have. We know what is there. We're just waiting for it to all come together, right? I mean, all the puzzle pieces they've been laid on the table. They just have to be put in place, right? The expected numbers are there. He had 99th percentile hard hit rate last year, a very good bat speed and squared up rate. Usually those are very mutually exclusive. You can't have, if you're going to have one, you have to sacrifice the other. Tatis, had very good metrics on both, which is awesome. Not only is he hitting the ball hard, but he's hitting it just about as hard as he can, given the high bat speed, which is hard to do. Even there are plenty of guys that I don't. Not even Aaron Judge does it to the same degree that Tatis does, um, which is just saying more about Tatis than it is about Judge. Yeah, the defensive value did go down a bit. Just to understand why you're not seeing the results in Chris, you laid it out for me. I'm just going to put more specific numbers on it. In 2024, Tatis had a 97.6 mile per hour average exit velocity on line drives and fly balls, the 7th highest among the 179 hitters with at least 150 line drives and fly balls. However, 36.2% of them were hit to the opposite field, which was a 13% increase over his mark from 2021, which was the last, really, really great season we saw out of Fernando Tatis Jr., which really just goes to show, even when you have his kind of power, when you're hitting the ball to the opposite field that much, you are kind of missing out on a lot of your power potential, especially in Petco Park as a right-handed hitter. And he's still able to muscle a lot of them over the fence, which is great. But still, there's a lot more potential out there when he pulls the ball, and that's something that he needs to get back at doing if he wants to return to his 2021 form. And that's kind of the thing that's keeping him from being number top 3 on this list for me, I would say. But I'm waiting for that potential to be there. I'm waiting to see it. I think it can still happen. But for now, he's number 5, largely because of that opposite field percentage on the power hits.
Right, right. And adding to that, like people might wonder, why would hitting it to the opposite field be worse than pulling it? Obviously they're both shorter ends of the ballpark. Usually with players in general, they're more likely to, kind of pull it down the line than hit it opposite field down the line. Like, just kind of observationally, when you hit it to when players hit it to the opposite field, it's usually to the, I guess, deeper end of the opposite field, whether that be, right center field or left center field or closer to those parts of the ballpark. So, if you look at someone like Isaac Paredes and how he pulls the ball, it's, right down the line a lot of the time. So that's more common than hitting it, opposite field down the line all the time, unless you're like maybe Bo Bichette or something like that. I know he had crazy opposite field numbers at least 2 years ago, but that's kind of the explanation on that. My number 5 is I'm sort of jumping the gun on Jackson Chorio.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say him.
He was not on any of my lists last year. Good on you for putting him top 10 center fielders. Even though I guess he didn't technically play center field, but he was projected at the time to play center field. But yeah, he had a really good year last year. He finished 3rd in the Rookie of the Year, and he got MVP votes as well. He's heading into his age 21 season. He ranked 6th among current right fielders in FWAR last year, but he ranked 3rd in his final 81 games. In those 81 games, he hit 309 with a 903 OPS and ranked 12th among all position players in FWAR. And among 146 qualified hitters in that span, his average ranked 9th and his OPS ranked 11th. And out of 153 hitters to see 1,000 plus pitches in that span, Chorio's expected batting average ranked 8th and expected WOBA ranked 17th. And yeah, if he like I've said before, talking about players who had really, really good second halves or maybe last 3 months of the season, in Chorio's case, it's last like 3+ months of the season. I value that more with players that are younger. We kind of saw that with Bobby Witt Jr. last year. Like he had a really good back half of 2023, and that transferred to, an MVP level 2024. With someone like Chorio, he kind of got his feet wet in the MLB for those first 3 months of the year. It was sort of trying to figure things out, and he did figure things out towards the end of that season. And I think that can really transfer over to 2025, and especially as someone who's only 21 years old. So yeah, I think if he keeps up what he did in his final 81 games, I think he is a perennial MVP candidate, considering what he also does on defense and on the bases. So I'm kind of going based off that potential for this number 5 pick, and what he did in that final half of 2024. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do in 2025. Who do you have at number 4?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that our 1 through 4 is exactly the same, both of the players we have listed in the order. But hey, I could be wrong. Number 4, I have Corbin Carroll, who is my number 1 left fielder last year. He is now expected to play right field for the Diamondbacks, and it was a weird year for him for sure. Definitely a down year overall in pretty much every facet of offense, at least. His batting average went down by over 50 points. His OBP went down 40 points. His slugging went down quite considerably. So, it was definitely not the year that we were hoping for, but I still think that he is much closer to his 2023 self than he is his overall 2024 self. And I mean, really, it was the tale of 2 seasons for him in general, right? I mean, then from March through June, he had a 76 weighted runs created plus. From July through September, he had a 139 weighted runs created plus. And I think we can expect something a lot closer to that 139 this coming season. It was a year of a lot of changes for him. First of all, all the essentials were still there, right? Corbin Carroll had the best base running run value in the league with 12 runs created. He had 96th percentile sprint speed. The outs above average was 8 this year. It was very positive, much like it was in 2023. I know that Fangraphs and Baseball Savant kind of disagree on him defensively, but he was very well, he has been very well liked on Baseball Savant for these last couple of years. Much like Fernando Tatis Jr., he is a guy that has a high bat speed and also a high squared up rate. So the thing about squared up rate is that it's when you hit a ball at the 80th at 80% of the possible exit velocity given bat speed and pitch speed. So when you have a higher bat speed, your 80th percentile exit velocity tends to be a lot higher than, say, if you had like a Luis Ariz bat speed, then you'd have to hit the ball like 86 miles an hour for it to be squared up, which is obviously very easy to do. But Corbin Carroll is able to do both. He had 74th percentile or higher bat speed and squared up rate. The chase rate was very good. All the strikeout and walk numbers were very good. But it was some major midseason adjustments in terms of his batted balls that really did it in for me. His fly ball rate went from 16.7% from March through June to 28% from July through September. And his pull rate also went from 35% to 40.9%. So I think those 2 things played a major role in that increase in weighted runs created plus between the 2 sides of the season. And, I fully expect to see something very close to what we saw out of his Rookie of the Year campaign in 2023 this coming season. So I'm expecting more big things from Corbin Carroll last year. I know that he had a rather disappointing season coming off of being number 1 on both of our left field lists, but I'm very excited to see a bounce back year from him in 2025.
Yeah, I think that um defensive discrepancy, or the discrepancy in outs above average and Fangraphs defensive runs above average, can be explained by also the Statcast arm value that is
Yes.
pinned on him.
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure that the Statcast numbers and Fangraphs numbers are like lock and key. Like Fangraphs goes off of the Statcast numbers. It's just his arm value is -3, or was -3 last year, and I think it was -6 the year before that, if I'm correct. Yeah, -6 the year before that. So his outs of like his range is really good. It's just his arm is not, which brings down his defensive run value. And also he's been playing mostly corner outfield, so I guess that does also bring his like Fangraphs defensive runs above average down as well. My number 4 is also Corbin Carroll. He was my number 1 left fielder last year. And he is heading into his age 24 season. He ranked fourth among current right fielders in F4 last year, and he ranks fourth over the last 2 years. He had a really, really bad first 2 months of the season, as you kind of talked about. Uh, really bad first 2 months of the season in 2024. Then he ranked 11th among all position players in F4 in his final 98 games. And in those final 98 games, he basically did what he did in his rookie season. Uh, he hit 256, slugged 522 with an 871 OPS. His OPS in those 98 games was within 3 points of his 2023 OPS. His WOBA was within 2 points of his 2023 WOBA, and his expected WOBA in those final 98 games was the exact same as his 2023 expected WOBA. So yeah, like in those final 98 games, he was pretty much the exact same as he was in that rookie season, where not only did he win Rookie of the Year, but he was also very high up in the MVP votes. So yeah, I mean, like he showed that he can get back to that level. I'm trying not to put the Michael Harris arc against him because he is completely following the Michael Harris arc.
That is a great point.
He For those unaware of the parallel, Michael Harris also won Rookie of the Year. That was in 2022. Then in 2023, like Carroll in 2024, Michael Harris had a really rough first 2 months of the year and ended with a really good 4 months of the year. However, unfortunately, Michael Harris last year only put up 2 wins above replacement and did not have a great year. If Corbin Carroll follows that arc, he will have a very average season this year. But I think he breaks the Michael Harris arc this year, and I think he has not the 2023 level season, but I think it will be closer to 2023 than his 2024 season. So yeah, I love the potential out of Corbin Carroll this year. Who do you have at number 3?
Yeah, I gotta rock the touch screen on my laptop right now because there's a cat on my keyboard and I'm unable to use the trackpad function. So, number 3, I have Kyle Tucker, who is trading his uniform this year. He got traded from the Astros to the Cubs this offseason. And man, do I wish we didn't see an injury out of him last year because he was unbelievable in the 339 plate appearances as I have to move my face to see the plate appearance number on Baseball Savant. But I mean, if you look at the Baseball Savant page, I know that I hate using the sliders just as the singular tool of evaluating a player, but I mean, you really wish you could have seen the not just the preview version, but like the actual he qualified and this is what percentile he's in type of thing. But he was unbelievable at basically every stretch. He upped his barrel rate by 2%. He upped his average exit velocity by 1 mile an hour, which doesn't seem like much, but he also, oh boy, okay. I'm working with some distractions here, but he also dropped his ground ball rate by 11.5%, going from 36.6% to 27.1% last year. He upped his fly ball rate to be over 40%, kind of just maximizing the power that he has. Which is just awesome to see last year. And more importantly, it was a bit of a down, it was not a down year, but another year where he just absolutely crushed four seamers, which is really all he's done for the last few years. Throughout the 2020s, Kyle Tucker has a 10.5 run value per 100 against four seam fastballs, which means for every 100 four seamers he has seen since 2020, he is producing on average 10 runs on a rate basis. And that is the second highest among the 436 hitters with at least 200 plate appearances ending on four seamers throughout the 2020s. I'm very excited to see what he does in Wrigley. He isn't necessarily a pull heavy guy on fly balls specifically. He does it, but not to an extreme degree, which I think will benefit him in Wrigley because pulling it is maybe the worst thing you could do there, believe it or not. I know it's not super common, but you want to go like more gaps. You want to go left center, right center. Than you want to do pulling the ball because of the little indents that they have there and in both of the corners. So I'm very excited to see what Kyle Tucker does this year. Also, the defense went back to normal. He had a weird down year on defense in 2023, was a little more average there in 2024. So I have him at my number 3 spot, and it was just an outstanding year for him.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I also have Kyle Tucker at number 3. He was my number 3 last year as well. He is heading into his age 28 season, and he's heading into a contract year as well. And despite missing 84 games, he ranked 3rd among current right fielders in F4 in 2024, which is pretty unbelievable to be top 3 at the position in F4 when you miss 84 games. And
Yeah.
he also ranks 5th among current right fielders over the last 2 years in F4. And yeah, as you mentioned, he dropped his ground ball rate 11.5 percentage points from 2023 to 2024 and increased his fly ball rate by 8.6 percentage points from 2023 to 2024. And part of that had to do with his OPS plus going from 142 to 181. I found interesting with Kyle Tucker. I guess maybe going a little bit against his case is he had 23 home runs in 2024, but only 16.7 expected home runs based on the average ballpark. However, I'm not really worried about much of a drop off playing for the Cubs because he had more projected home runs in only 2 ballparks over Wrigley Field in 2024, meaning Wrigley Field had the 3rd most projected home runs for Kyle Tucker based on where he's hitting his fly balls in 2024. Also with Kyle Tucker, he went 11 for 11 on stolen bases in 2024 and would steal 21 bases over a 150 game pace if he ended up playing that many games last year. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what we see in a full season of Kyle Tucker. If he, I'd be surprised if the fly ball rate and stays that high and the ground ball rate stays that low. But if they remain like better than his 2023 rates, I see potential for a truly great season from him. Potentially MVP level for him, or MVP runner up for him, I guess, if Ohtani's pitching this year. But yeah, Kyle Tucker gets my number 3 spot. Who do you have at number 2?
Yeah, at number 2, I have very unsurprising pick, I guess. Talking about Juan Soto from the New York Mets. He just signed a $765 million contract for 13 years to cross town, go from the Bronx to Queens. So very exciting to see, the debut season, a much anticipated debut season for the Mets. We saw so much improvement out of Juan Soto, which is crazy to say given how talented we already knew he was. But he did so many of the things that I've been waiting to see from him. He lowered his ground ball rate. It went from 51.9% to 44.7%. And both of those increases went equally to his line drive rate and his fly ball rate. He upped his pull rate from 35.5% in 2023 to 42.3% in 2024, the highest pull rate that he's had in his career by quite a wide margin. So it was very cool to see him finally do those things. And on top of that, everything else stayed the same. The walk rate was 18.1%. He had a 419 on base percentage, yet another season over 400 with that. Another guy that hits the ball very hard with a fast swing rate, 94th percentile bat speed and squared up rate, like I mentioned, very hard to do. 98th to 100th percentile in basically every hard hit related category, whether it be the expected numbers, barrel rate, hard hit rate, whatever. Career highs in expected, average exit velocity and hard hit rate. Also, very good in strikeout rate again. And even better, when he was hitting those fly balls, those line drives, the things that I've wanted to see more out of from him that we saw this year, he was doing them very well. He barreled 50.8% of his fly balls in 2024. The best percent that he's had in a full season, and his career average barrel rate on fly balls going into this year was 35.5%. He made it at 50% this year. So amazingly, a lot of improvement that we saw out of him last year. Very unsurprising that we saw him end the season with a 988 OPS and 41 home runs. And very much looking forward to seeing what he can do in Queens, although there is one right fielder that I see is better than him.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's a very high standard to live up to. My number two is also Juan Soto. So yeah, I think you're right about 1 through 4 being the same order. I was hesitant to agree because I feel like we've said that before, and then
Yeah,
there's been a there's been a someone
but this one feels very like, come on, it's right there.
it's on a tee for us. But yeah, Juan Soto is my number two. He was my number two right fielder last year. He is heading into his age 26 season, and he ranked second among current right fielders in F4 last year, and he ranked second over the last 2 years. And he's coming off career highs in wins above replacement, home runs, total bases, average exit velocity, and barrel rate, and also fly ball rate. And he set non-COVID season career highs in slugging, OPS plus, expected slugging, and expected WOBA. And he was top 4 in all of baseball last year in on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. And he was 100th percentile in expected WOBA, expected batting average, and walk rate. And also over the last 3 years, his defensive run value has gone from -17 to -7 to -1. So, it's shown that it's gone from disastrous to kind of average, which is really, I mean, like, it's a luxury to have him as an average defender considering the offense that he provides. If he stays at that average level. And yeah, like he fixed a lot of what people were concerned about with him in 2024, or what a lot of what people were concerned about him before 24. He fixed that in 2024. Whether that be his defense or his ground ball rate, and that allowed him to have the best season of his career. I think that some of those things were holding him back, and he hadn't had a season, he hadn't had an 8-win season before, and I think that either had to do with his ground ball rate being too high, or his which brought down his offensive numbers, or his defense being too poor. He fixed both of those, and that allowed him to put together uh, an MVP finalist season, and have the best season of his career. I will say, like, I think regression should not be too much of a surprise considering how drastic some of his improvements were in 2024. Like, I could see maybe his ground ball rate sneaking up a little bit, or his defense going down a little bit. But I still see him having a really, really good season in 2025. And, regression isn't something I can necessarily fall back on, considering how young he is. But yeah, Juan Soto is my number two. Who do you have at number one?
So at number one, very unsurprising here. He was our number one center fielder last year. He was our number one player in baseball last year. And all he did was prove us to be completely right, winning his second MVP and putting up his third season with 50 plus home runs. Talking about Aaron Judge. I mean, have you heard of this guy, Chris? I mean, he is so big.
He's pretty, yeah, he's big. Like, I'd love to see maybe a side by side comparison of him and like Rob Gronkowski, maybe.
I was gonna say the Empire State Building, but that works too, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like, and you have like, look at the staying power of, like, his last name's Judge. Like, imagine a section of like people in like kind of old school like Revolutionary War era
Yeah.
like wigs, and just like saying like, we're the judge's chamber. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, that would be really cool.
Aaron Judge's numbers are just so inhumane. It is hilarious to look at his, like the way that people talked about Mike Trout's baseball reference page in the late 20, like the late 29 2010s, the early 2020s, with all of the bold and all of the big numbers on his baseball reference page. That's how I feel about Aaron Judge's baseball savant page. Because it is just so hilarious to see all the red every single year. And it's not just red, but it's like It's like unthinkable, right? I mean, an average exit velocity of 95% or higher each of the last 4 seasons, along with an expected batting average above 285, an expected slugging above nearly 600 at least. In fact, an expected slugging in the 700s in each of the last 3 seasons. It's a complete joke. On top of that, the walk rate's gone up very nicely, around close to 20% in the last 2 years. One of my favorite Aaron Judge stat, I think, is that he is coming off of his 4th season with 200 plus batted balls and a barrel rate above 25%. No one else in the StatCast era has done that once. He has done it 4 times. There is nobody like him in the game today. He might be, I mean, in terms of what we've seen in a peak, he might be having the best peak for a right-handed hitter since like legitimately World War II. Like it's like it might beat out Mike Trout in terms of just pure offense. It might beat out peak Albert Pujols. It's them too in terms of the OPS plus numbers, in terms of the league adjustment stats, the ballpark adjusted stuff. It's Aaron Judge in a ballpark with nobody else, and that's what we've seen throughout the last 3 years. He's shown us no reason to believe that he can't do it again in 2025. For that reason, he is my number one right fielder.
Yeah, I mean, Albert Pujols never surpassed an OPS plus of 200, and Judge has done that twice. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely a case to be made. And yeah, with Trout, I don't think he surpassed 200 either. Yeah, just on a hitting front.
Yeah, I'm not talking about just pure offense, pure value. I'm talking just offense straight up.
Yeah, and hitting specifically. Um, my my number one is also Aaron Judge, who was also my number one center fielder last year, and also my number one player in baseball for 2024. And yeah, good on us for getting that right. A lot of people had Ronald Acuna Jr. Last year as the number one player in baseball. Aaron Judge was better. And Aaron Judge is heading into his age 33 season. It's not really slowing him down yet though. He led all players at any position in F4 last year, and he leads all outfielders in F4 over the last 2 years. And then he also leads all position players over the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 years. And despite having an incredible career before last year, he set career highs in average on base percentage, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, expected WOBA, walks, total bases, doubles, and wins above replacement in 2024. And to top that all off, he set a career low in strikeout rate. And he also led the league in on base percentage, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, walks, total bases, and wins above replacement. And he was 100th percentile in expected slugging, expected WOBA, average exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate, and walk rate. So yeah, if that doesn't tell you at all, he's the best hitter in baseball and is not too much of a detriment on defense. So yeah, he gets the number one spot on this list. So there's
Yeah,
really not much you have to say with Aaron Judge.
it's kind of
He's the best.
self-explanatory.
Yeah, he's the best right fielder in baseball, and I think the best, or he's definitely, if not the best exclusive position player in baseball,
Mm-hmm.
he's top two. Um,
Exclusive position player.
yeah,
What a filter.
yeah, exactly.
He's the best
Um,
position player that doesn't also pitch.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, that does it for those lists. Do you want to go through your 10 through 1?
Absolutely. So number 10, I had Colton Cowser. Number 9, Anthony Santander. Number 8, Lawrence Butler. Number 7, Jackson Churio. Number 6, Ronald Acuna Jr. Number 5, Fernando Tatis Jr. Number 4, Corbin Carroll. Number 3, Kyle Tucker. Number 2, Juan Soto. And number 1, Aaron Judge. Teoscar Hernandez, I'm so sorry. I really wanted to put you. This is just such a good list, and unfortunately, one person had to miss the cut. I'm sorry that it had to be you. Um, I hope that you prove me wrong. Also, honorable mention Dylan Cruz. Just couldn't find a spot for him this year, but I have very big expectations for him as well.
Yeah, yeah. My number 10 was Colton Cowser, number 9, Anthony Santander, number 8, Teoscar Hernandez, number 7, Ronald Acuna Jr., number 6, Fernando Tatis Jr., number 5, Jackson Chorio, number 4, Corbin Carroll, number 3, Kyle Tucker, number 2, Juan Soto, number 1, Aaron Judge. Shout out to Lawrence Butler. He was my number 11. And then right behind him, Wilyer Abreu and Matt Wallner. I was considering as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were my 10. So yeah, the that does it for all position players.
Yes.
For top tens for 2025. Yeah, we will be doing starting pitchers next week, so be on the lookout for that. That's gonna be fun because obviously there's way more starting pitchers in the league than like right fielders or second basemen. So there you're gonna have to be a really really good starting pitcher to be on the list. Same with relief pitcher, even to a greater
There's a
scale.
lot of good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, now we will get into the final segment.
Our
Uh,
favorite time of the year.
yeah, it's division preview time.
Woo.
And yeah, for those unaware, this is our sixth year of doing
Wow.
division
Wow.
previews.
Yeah, it is.
It's our sixth year. Basically, what we do, we kind of mull over just who they added and subtracted, who each team added and subtracted over the year, and then we specifically highlight one player, one sort of under the radar player that maybe we could see having a breakout this year, or at least be on the lookout for this year. And then we ask each other kind of a question about the team or a specific player for each team in the division. And yeah, we break it down team by team and we go in order of where they finish, or in reverse order of where they finished in the division. And this week we are doing the American League Central. And so yeah, we will be starting with the White Sox, who, if you're unaware, they finished last in the AL Central and did no other significant things bad. They were just last in the AL Central. That's
Yeah, there was the very typical last place team.
Yeah, pretty yeah, like
They
just run of
lost
the
they lost
mill.
over 100 games.
Yep, yep, that's what happened. But yeah, the White Sox, they're coming off a 41 and 121 season and finished last in the AL Central. They lost Garrett Crochet, Yohan Moncada, Nicky Lopez, Gavin Sheets, Chris Flexen, and Mike Soroka, and they added Mike Talkman, Martin Perez, uh, Martin Perez, Matt Thaiss, Ron Marinaccio, and Aniel De Los Santos. Who's your player to watch from the White Sox?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's tough to find a player to watch on a team that quite simply was not worth watching last year, other than when Garrett Crochet was on the mound. But he, of course, will not be on the mound this year. But they did get some interesting return pieces, most notably Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery, the Red Sox 2023 and 2024 first round draft picks. But my player to watch is another player they got in that trade, one that got understandably less attention, but I think could play a meaningful role on this team this year. I'm talking about Chase Mydroth, who is a second baseman who played all of last season in AAA at age 22 for the Red Sox, and in doing so, slash 293, 437, 400 for an 837 OPS in, again, 558 plate appearances at age 22. He had an 18.8% walk rate, which is 0.1% off from, I believe, Aaron Judge last year, and a 12.7% strikeout rate. He led all qualifying AAA players in walks per strikeout at 1.48. He also led an OBP and was seventh in weighted runs created plus. Since 2006, his walks per strikeout ratio of 1.48 ranks second among the 137 qualifying AAA seasons by a player aged 22 or younger. Only 2006 Dustin Pedroia ranked higher, another Red Sox second baseman. It was also the highest walk per strikeout among the 1,416 seasons by any MILB player aged 22 or younger, with at least 500 plate appearances since 2006. In 2024, his 17.3% chase rate was the third lowest among the 189 minor leaguers to see at least 750 tracked pitches outside the strike zone. I do have to say tracked pitches because high A and double A do not have StatCast, so that's only among single A and triple A players. His 30.7% swing rate. That's right. He swung at 30.7% of pitches last year. That was the lowest among the 871 minor leaguers to see at least 200 tracked pitches. He saw over 2,000. And it was the lowest swing rate among the 495 seasons since 2021, where any minor leaguer saw at least 1,500 tracked pitches. He also had a whiff rate of 11.6, which ranked the second lowest among the 362 minor leaguers to see at least 1,000 tracked pitches. So I don't really know what Chase Mydroth will bring in terms of his offensive value in regards to slugging, batting average, that kind of stuff. But I mean, he is as patient as any hitter that you will see. You will see him have great control of the strike zone this year. And I think that can really uplift whatever offense he does put together for the White Sox in regards to actually swinging the bat and hitting the ball. I'm hoping to see him get some time this year. One thing that I want to do this year for players to watch is some kind of estimate of what I would call successful for the pick, because I think they'll all have very different standards. I would like to see Chase Mydroth get like 300 plus plate appearances for the White Sox and have an OBP north of 340. And if he does that, I think this could be a very successful pick. So that is my White Sox player to watch.
Yeah. That's a very good analysis. He gets on base as the great Brad Pitt, former
GM.
former GM for the Athletics. That's what he talked about.
That's what he said. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it was in between Fight Club and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was GMing the Athletics. Pretty crazy. But yeah, my player to watch from the White Sox is another middle infield prospect. It is Colson Montgomery.
Yeah.
He and this is really just going based off potential. He did not have a great year in the minors last year. He was drafted in the first round in 2021. He was ranked the number 39 prospect in baseball by MLB.com heading into 2025. And yeah, he did not have the best 2024 season in the minors, but he has a 60 power grade and 55 fielding grade as a shortstop. And he's likely going to be coming up this year. So I'm just kind of going based off of the feeling here and based off the potential and hoping that the White Sox don't completely ruin him. But yeah, in terms of, the White Sox have turned themselves into a pretty good farm system with, via some trades and some draft picks. And we're hoping that, just as a baseball fan, that Colson Montgomery and Matt or Chase Mydroth can at least provide some optimism for the White Sox future for 2025, or at least in 2025 and for the years beyond that. So yeah, now on to questions.
Yeah, absolutely. My question, will this team finish over or under 26 and a half games behind fourth place in the AL Central? Just to give you an idea, they finished 41 games back of fourth place last year. They needed to have win 56 games to hit the under on this.
Yeah, so with that question, you kind of have to think about what the other teams will do. And yeah, like and I think the White Sox will find a way to win more than they did last year. Like I don't think they'll do by any means good, and I don't think they'll really get close to 60 that close to like 60 wins, but I do think they'll win more. And I don't know, I expect the Tigers to do somewhat well. The Twins should at least middle. The Royals I don't know very much out of, and who's it? The Guardian. The Guardians I expect to at least be kind of an average team, but the Royals might, I don't know. I could see a potential drop off from there. So yeah, if I'm doing the math here, um, I'll say I'll still say over 26.5. I just don't think they have made the enough. They'll be making enough strides in 2025. So yeah, I'll still say over. My question, this is a classic Gianta type question. Um, Luis Robert had an 857 OPS in
Ah,
2023 and a 657 OPS in 2024. Will he have over or under a 757 OPS in 2025?
I think Luis Robert is not going to be on the White Sox by the end of the season. And I think a change of scenery is a desperate need for him. And I feel like, whoever he gets traded to at some point this year will probably, uh, you know, he'll probably thrive there. I could see him going somewhere else and just kind of remembering that he's not on the White Sox anymore and there's more expected of him now. So I'll take the over on that one because I think a change of scenery will do him very well, and I expect that it's coming this year. Um, let's keep track of these this year so that I don't have to listen back to every episode to figure out what the answers were like last year.
Yeah, I'll put a
I'll
note in.
jot it down. Yeah.
Um, Daniel, semicolon over. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and we'll kind of alternate who goes first on the players to watch. Um, the Twins. Yeah, next up we have the Twins, who went 82 and 80 and finished fourth in the American League Central. They lost Carlos Santana, Max Kepler, Kyle Farmer, Alex Kirilloff, and Caleb Thielbar. And according to at least my standards, they added no one significant. If
You're right.
unless I'm forgetting somebody, but they didn't add anybody significant. And my player to watch is Ryan Jeffers. He is heading into his age 28 season. He's a catcher for the Twins, and actually got his most playing time, or he had the most playing time of his career last year. He had 465 plate appearances. He has a 116 OPS plus in 800 plate appearances over the last 2 years, and among 17 catchers with 800 plus plate appearances over the last 2 years, he has the third highest OPS. And part of that had to do with in 2024, he pulled 38% of his fly balls. And over the last 2 years, among 211 hitters with 500 plus batted balls, Jeffers has the 27th highest rate of batted balls being pulled fly balls, which is top 13%. Along with that, he has an 11.3% barrel rate for his career. So yeah, I think Jeffers is someone to look out for, or someone maybe under the radar to just kind of keep track of because there are some interesting things about him, and he can be one of the better offensive catchers in baseball if he kind of gets things in the right direction. And he also is on the younger side, so that does help him out a little bit. So Ryan Jeffers is my Twins player to watch. Who is your Twins player to watch?
Yeah, so for my Twins player to watch, I'm going to the rotation, looking at a pitcher that I think could be interesting this year. He's not projected to be in the rotation right now, but I think whatever time he gets, he could be very useful. I'm talking about David Festa, who got some innings for them last year, 64 and a third to be exact, and in doing so, had a 4.90 ERA and a 3.76 FIP. So got quite unlucky last year in regards to that kind of thing. 77 strikeouts and 23 walks for a 19.5% K rate minus walk rate. In his last 8 starts of the season, which was the start of August on, he actually posted a 4 ERA and a 2.88 FIP. So more unluckiness, but also an elite FIP for any stretch of time, 2.88 over 8 starts. He ranked tied for 13th among all starting pitchers in FWAR in the span, despite ranking 89th in innings pitched. His barrel rate against went from 13.6 before the span to 6% in the span. His secondary pitches were really what caught my eye, believe it or not. I normally don't talk about a lot about a guy's secondaries, but for David Festa, I feel like I have to. On his secondary pitches, his barrel rate against went from 15.4% before the span to 2.5% in this span. One of Festa's secondaries is his slider. The whiff rate on his slider went from 22.6% before the span to 31.7% in the span. The ground ball rate went from 30.4% to 48.8%. And overall, opponents went from hitting 310 and slugging 586 against the slider to hitting 159 and slugging 190. His 2.3 run value per 100 against his slider from August through September ranked 7th highest among these 70 pitchers with at least 150 sliders thrown in that span. So his slider was elite. It was one of the best pitches in all of baseball. As for his changeup, which is his other secondary pitch, he threw 42.5% changeups in game day zone 13, which is low and into righties. And that was the 5th highest rate among these 76 pitchers to throw at least 300 changeups in 2024. More importantly, he had a 41% chase rate against changeups in that zone. So, not only he did throw a lot of changeups in one particular zone that was not a strike, but he got a lot of swing on it. So I really like that. So I'm hoping to see him. I can't imagine he makes a ton of starts. I can't imagine he pitches a ton of innings. I would like to see him get around 1.5 to 2 FWAR this year. Just that's simply a sample size thing. I think, as a guy making spot starts, maybe a guy that needs to step up when someone goes down on the IL, he could be a really nice option to go to. So I'm looking at David Festa as my Twins player to watch.
Yeah. The strikeout to walk numbers look pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Now on to questions. My question revolves around someone you were very high on last year and kind of got out to a rough start, but ended the season very well. Will Pablo Lopez receive Cy Young votes in 2025?
Yeah, I'm staying in. It's the fastball is still his best pitch, but he over the last couple of years has gone through like a month or two long stretch where he was just giving up a few too many home runs on it. Um, I think that he's going to neutralize that a little bit and become the guy that I know he is. I'm staying in on Pablo Lopez for sure. I don't think he'll win Cy Young. I did have him winning it last year, but I mean, when you say receive Cy Young votes, you mean he could just get a 5th place vote from one writer and it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to say yes on that one. I'm being very optimistic today.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. So for my question, I have which number will be higher, Byron Buxton's barrel rate or Emmanuel Rodriguez's walk rate? Byron Buxton had a 13.2% barrel rate last year. Emmanuel Rodriguez is a top prospect who is expected to debut this year. He is going into his age 22 season. And last year he played only 7 games at AAA. So it's probably going to take some time for him to get up. But in 209 minor league plate appearances last year, he had a 24.4% walk rate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which of those numbers will be higher?
So yeah, that's a pretty good line. And
You're probably
also,
looking at different sample sizes, but it is Byron Buxton.
yeah, and yeah, with Emmanuel Rodriguez, like if he doesn't say he gets 200 plate appearances this year, might skew his odds better. But I guess Byron Buxton might not get that many more than him. But unfortunately, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, 24.4%. So I guess his identity is kind of waiting patiently. And yeah, I like what Byron Buxton brings to the table, but I think that's kind of where he's at. I don't think he's necessarily going to increase his barrel rate. So the question basically is, will he have more than half of his walk rate at the major league level?
Yeah,
Still, it's a tough question because I'm trying to
exactly.
think like
Because those things normally go down from the minors to the majors.
because I mean, what was I'm gonna look up where that would rank among where 13% would rank among qualifiers in 2025. It would rank like a 13.2% walk rate uh, would rank 4th among qualifiers last year. So I don't know if even with his skill, I don't know if he'll get to that level. I will take Byron Buxton's barrel rate.
All right.
Yeah. Um, but But yeah, so now on to the Tigers, who went 86-76 and finished third in the AL Central last year. They swept the Astros in the wild card series and then lost to the Guardians in the ALDS. By my standards, they lost no one significant, and they added Jack Flaherty, Gleyber Torres, and Alex Cobb. Who is your Tigers player to watch?
Yeah, my Tigers player to watch is a guy that I talked about pretty at length down the stretch last year, and how important I felt like his impact on the team was. Although maybe it didn't show on the field, I think having a guy like him went a long way. Talking about Trey Sweeney, who was one of the guys that they got in the Jack Flaherty trade. They plugged him in at shortstop, making his major league debut, by the way, and he did pretty well for them. The offense wasn't quite there, but a lot of the seeds were planted for a guy that I think you can be optimistic about in terms of his offense. He had a 91.1 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 74 mile per hour average bat speed, and 2 outs above average, which are some of the things that he can control a little bit more, especially the bat speed. 32.9% of batted balls hit by Sweeney were hard hit line drives and fly balls. The league average is 24, so that's a very good rate. However, 61% of those batted balls were hit straight away, which means they're probably finding a glove. They're not getting out. They're not going to turn into extra base hits as much as you would hope. So that's a clear thing to improve on. But like I said, some of the seeds are there. They're planted. And that 61.5% rate is the third highest rate among the 100 hitters with at least 25 hard hit line drives and fly balls after August 16th, which is the day that he made his major league debut. Sweeney was one of just 4 shortstops in all of Major League Baseball throughout last year to have a fast swing rate above 35% and positive outs above average, minimum 200 swings. The other 3 shortstop to do this were Bobby Witt Jr., Ellie De La Cruz, and Carlos Correa. So 3 guys that we had in our top 10s on the position, and Trey Sweeney was right there with them in terms of those 2 things. I think the importance he serves on the team is that he allows them to kind of forget that Javier Baez exists. So, I mean, he provides the same level of defense, which is really the reason that Baez was still in there. The offense wasn't fantastic last year, but it's not that bad, right? I mean, an 80 weighted runs created plus is so much better than a 60, which is what we saw out of him. And he's obviously much cheaper than Baez. So, like I said, the seeds are planted. There's plenty of things that he can improve on this year that I think can make him a really meaningful player in this lineup and on the team in general. So I'm very excited to see what we could see out of Trey Sweeney. I'm hoping to see maybe 100 weighted runs created plus and just more very good outs above average numbers. I would say I would like to see at least 5, let's say, at least 5 outs above average and a weighted runs created plus around 100.
Yeah, I mean, if you do that over a full season as a shortstop, you're like a 4-win player. My maybe not quite, maybe like 3.5. My Tigers player to watch is Parker Meadows. He was my number 10 center fielder in baseball for 2025. And yeah, because that's because I do have some optimism about what he can do, over a full season. Now that he's kind of established in the majors, he's heading into his age 25 season, and he had the 13th highest F4 among all position players in his final 47 games last year. That's from August 3rd on. He had an 840 OPS in those final 47 games, and he also put up +7 total outs above average in only 82 games. As a whole in 2024, and he also had a 62% extra base taken rate and 93rd percentile sprint speed. So there's great potential for what he can do on the bases as well. And yeah, +7 total outs above average in only 82 games. Like over a full season, he's probably putting up double-digit outs above average while having like average arm value and potentially pretty good offense. So I'm kind of banking on his potential, the potential that he showed in those final 2 months of the year. He really helped put the Tigers in a position to make the playoffs last year. So yeah, Parker Meadows is my Tigers player to watch. Now on to questions.
Yeah, so my question, one of the biggest storylines for the Tigers this offseason was the impact on the trade or the signing of Gleyber Torres, right? It seems like they're going to be moving Colt Keith to first. It seems like they're, I don't want to say moving on from Spencer Torkelson, but they are benching him essentially. Will Colt Keith log over or under 80 and a half games at first base this year?
A good question. Yeah. Because yeah, it's kind of a question of like how much do they trust Gleyber Torres at second, um, things like that. And yeah, I guess injuries can also change things up quite a bit. So you do have to factor that in. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. Um, I think he gets just over. I think it maybe like 85, something like
Okay,
that.
so just over half the games he plays at first.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, he'll be an everyday player, maybe not every day at first, but I think he'll play more games at first than any other position. Um, my question is Jack Flaherty had a 32.0% strikeout rate in Detroit and 26.1% uh, strikeout rate in Los Angeles. The middle point for that is 29.05%. Will he have over or under a 29.05% strikeout rate in 2025?
Yeah, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
That is quite a lot to ask. I'm gonna say he's a touch under. And simply because that is a very high number to reach.
Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
valid answer for
Not
sure.
much analysis on that one, but
Yeah,
that's kind of
it's
the whole idea of these questions.
similar to the Emmanuel um
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez thing. It's like, where would that rank among qualifiers? It would rank very, very high.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, now on to the Royals, who went 86 and 76 and finished second in the AL Central. And they swept the Orioles in the wild card series and then lost to the Yankees in the ALDS. Uh, over the offseason, they lost Brady Singer, Paul DeYoung, Tommy Pham, Robbie Grossman, Garrett Hampson, and Adam Frazier. And they added Jonathan India and Carlos Estevez. And my Royals player to watch is Lucas Urseg, out of the bullpen for the Royals. He was not on the Royals for the whole year last year. He was traded from the Athletics. And over the whole year, Lucas Urseg threw 61 and two-thirds innings pitched as a reliever, and he put up a 3.36 ERA and 2.53 FIP. Out of 169 qualified relievers in 2024, Urseg ranked 18th in FIP, which is top 11%. And he was very good in all the elements that make FIP. He wasn't just a home run prevention guy. He wasn't just a strikeout guy. He was good in all elements. He was top 25% among all qualified relievers in both strikeout rate and walk rate, and top 12% in home runs per nine. And what helped him prevent home runs last year was a low rate of fly balls being pulled against him. It was 21% of his fly balls against were pulled. And he also had a very low rate of barrels being pulled against him. It was only 20%. League average is around, I think, 45% of barrels, of percentage of barrels being pulled. And the percentage against him was 20%. So I think that just kind of tells that uh, hitters weren't getting the best looks off of him. Um, you know, Pitchers who are kind of easier to hit, I think, have higher pulled barrel rates against them. Um, Urseg also had the 35th lowest average exit velocity on fly balls among 453 pitchers with 25 plus fly balls against them, which was top 8%. And with average exit velocity against on all batted balls, he was 97th percentile. Also, Urseg averaged 98.6 miles per hour on his four-seam fastball last year, which was 98th percentile in baseball. And he also threw four pitches at least 19% of the time, which you don't normally see out of relievers. So, Urseg, he did a very good job at keeping the hitters guessing on what pitch he was going to throw. So yeah, Lucas Urseg is my Royals player to watch. Who is your Royals player to watch?
So my Royals player to watch, a guy that I actually watched hit a home run in person on a pulled fly ball, might I add. In 2023, when I saw them in Detroit, um, and they got me looking at him. I kept tabs on him in 2024. Didn't end up putting him as my player to watch, but he kept me interested for sure. Talking about Michael Massey, who is their second baseman. I don't really know how much time he's going to get at second this year with Jonathan India coming in, but um, regardless, I'm very interested to see what he can do this year on offense, especially. He had an 88-point increase in OPS from 2023 to 2024 in 356 plate appearances. He finished the year with a 15.7% strikeout rate, a 17.9% whiff rate, and 4 outs above average. Since his major league debut in 2022, Michael Massey has pulled 51% of his batted balls. That ranks third highest among the 299 hitters with at least 500 batted balls since the start of 2022. Massey has also pulled 32.3% of his fly balls in 2024. And in addition to this, 82.8% of his fly balls were squared up, which, like I mentioned earlier, means they reached 80% of the possible exit velocity given the pitch speed and bat speed that were given. And that 82.8% of fly balls being squared up was the 14th highest among the 285 hitters with at least 50 fly balls. Additionally, 27.3% of his total batted balls consisted of squared up fly balls, which was the 9th highest rate among the 237 hitters with at least 250 batted balls. Obviously, playing in Kansas City is very difficult, but Michael Massey, I think, has made the most of his power. Of power is very good. He hits a lot of fly balls. He pulls the ball a lot, which are things that I think are really essential. On top of that, he has very good contact numbers. He doesn't strike out very much. He plays very good defense. I would like to see him walk more. And overall, I would like to see 400 plate appearances and a weighted runs created plus at least in the 110 to 115 range. I think that would be a very nice season for him, for a team that needs more offense, more anywhere that they can get more offense. I think Michael Massey can establish himself as one of the better bats in this lineup, maybe a top of the order type of bat on a team that really needs one.
Yeah, yeah. Royals can use all the offense and all the power that they can get for sure. Now on to questions. My question is, last year the Royals had 4 qualifying pitchers or qualifying starters with an ERA plus above 110. How many will they have this year?
Yeah, so we're talking about Cole Reagans, we're talking about Seth Lugo, we're talking about Michael Wacha, and then it was Brady Singer on that list.
Yes.
Yeah, so he is no longer there. So we're talking about Chris Bubich. We're talking about Alec Marsh in the rotation. Michael Lorenzen was added back. Is there like a innings limit for this? Like 110 ERA plus?
Qualified. So
Qualified.
162.
Oh, will they have that many qualified? So will they have over under 3.5 qualified starters with an ERA plus? What was it above?
Well, it's
Or just general?
it's just they had 4 last year. How many will they have this year?
Okay, so just how many starters will qualify is what you're asking.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Will
such a
qualify.
difficult thing.
How many will have uh will qualify with an ERA plus above 110?
Okay. All right. Going to take so it's and the over under is 3.5, or is it
It's
just
not an
how
over
many?
under, it's just how
It's just
many,
how
yeah.
many. Okay. I'm gonna go with 3. I'm gonna say Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, and Michael Wacha do it.
All right.
Sorry,
All
I
right.
completely just did not understand that question. It took me like the third time you explained it. I actually have a very similar question, which makes that even worse. Um, Last year, in a season that was dominated by the status of pitcher health and so many injuries, the Royals had 3 starters that made at least 32 starts and maintained an ERA plus above 110. I'm going to give you over under. Will there be at least 2.5 starters that make at least 30 starts and have an ERA plus above 105?
105. Yeah, so yeah, Brady Singer being off that. Well, did Brady Singer was Brady Singer one of those starters?
Nope.
Okay, so it was not. So yeah. So
No, they
Walker
have at
Walker
least 3.
Reagans
Yeah.
and Lugo did
Lugo.
that.
Yep.
Is it 30 starts or 30?
30 starts at a 105 ERA plus.
Um So yeah, I say two do that. I say Reagans
Okay.
and Lugo do that.
All right.
Um, and I guess I'm being optimistic. Or actually, no, I'm
You
gonna
are being
say
pessimistic.
one. I'm gonna say one
Okay,
because
so regardless, you're taking the under. The question's over under 2.5.
yeah, I'm taking the under.
All right,
Because yeah, like 30 start, like we forget, not a lot of not a lot of guys get to 30 starts in a given year
for
or
sure.
consistently do it. Because yeah, you have to make every single start, and how often do we see a guy get put on the shelf for like 2 or 3 weeks? It's pretty often. Um, yeah, so that does it for the Royals, and now we get into the final team of the AL Central. It is the Cleveland Guardians, who last year went 92 and 69 and won the American League Central. They beat the Tigers in the ALDS, and then they lost to the Yankees in the ALCS. Over the offseason, they lost Andres Jimenez, Josh Naylor, Eli Morgan, Matthew Boyd, Alex Cobb, and Nick Sandlin, and they added Carlos Santana, Luis Ortiz, and Paul Sewald. Who's your Guardians player to watch?
Yeah, so my Guardians player to watch is a guy that I watched very intently last year because the way that he had been playing piqued my interest, and then he went on a generational slump as soon as I started paying attention. But he had a big moment in the postseason, so people will remember that more than the like 118 batting average he had in September. Talking about Big Christmas himself, John Kenzie Noel, who I think could play a very key role in kind of balancing out the Cleveland lineup. They've been known over the last several years to have a very contact heavy offense, but there was a bit of a shift in that where it became a little bit more power centric in at least the first half of last year. And I think bringing guys in like John Kenzie Noel, bringing guys in like Carlos Santana, maybe giving Kyle Manzardo more playing time could give them a little bit more of that power, balancing out with Jose Ramirez, who almost hit 40 home runs last year, and things like that. Um, but John Kenzie Noel finished 2024 with a 14.5% barrel rate and a 78.1 mile per hour average bat speed. He had a 29.1% fly ball rate and pulled 44.1% of his fly balls, the second highest rate of fly balls being pulled in any Guardian season in the StatCast era with at least 25 fly balls. Only, I believe it was one Jose Ramirez season that topped that, and that was it. 23.5% of his batted balls were pulled, or excuse me, 23.5% of his fly balls were pulled and barreled, which was the second highest rate again of the 402 hitters with at least 24, or excuse me, of at least 25 fly balls in the year 2024. So when he was hitting fly balls, he was hitting them in the correct way. He was pulling them, he was barreling them, which is really good to see. Among the 561 hitters with at least 50 swings in 2024, Noel ranked third in average bat speed and third in fast swing rate. However, he only unlocked a small piece of his power as 19.8% of his contact was squared up, which was the second lowest rate on the aforementioned list of 561. So, the bat speed was there, the squared up rate wasn't. He wasn't getting to that 80% of possible exit velocity, which, like I mentioned, is harder to do when you have a higher bat speed, but I would like to see him get maybe towards the middle of the pack a little bit more. Also, another thing that needs to be improved on, aside from strikeout rate, which is an obvious thing, he only had a 90.6 mile per hour average exit velocity on line drives last year, which is 3 miles per hour below the league average. For a guy like John Kenzie Noel, I need to see the average line drive being hard hit. It can't be 90.6 per mile per hour. That's not okay. Again, he could be something that the Guardians have lacked for a while in a solid middle of the order right-handed bat. Like they haven't really had that maybe since Franmil Reyes, I would say, and even then, I think he could very much exceed what Franmil Reyes was for them. So I think he plays a very important role in this team, and a full season breakout, I think is very essential for Guardians' success. I would like to see 30 home runs. Very simple. I would like to see 30 home runs. He had 13 in less than 200 plate appearances last year, so it's very possible. I need to see 30 this year.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah, like as you mentioned, kind of an exclusive right-handed hitter putting out production. For the Guardians, we have not seen too much of that. Um, But yeah, my player to watch is another guy with maybe like, less major league experience. It is Kyle Manzardo.
Mhm.
As you earlier
We have
meant.
the same idea, just different guys.
Yeah, exactly. He was drafted in the second round in 2021 by Tampa Bay, was traded in the Aaron Savali deal in 2023, and he entered last year as the number 59 prospect in all of baseball on MLB.com and the number 37 prospect on Baseball Prospectus. Um, in 83 games in the International League, that's the AAA league in on the East Coast, I guess. He put up a 398 on base percentage and 946 OPS. He also, out of 114 hitters with 350 plus plate appearances in the International League, he led in OPS and weighted runs created plus. And then in all of AAA out of 362 hitters out of 362 hitters in AAA in all of AAA last year with 1,000 plus pitches seen. Manzardo's barrel rate was 22nd, which is top 7% in all of AAA, and his expected slugging was seventh, and his expected WOBA was fifth. That's out of 362 in all of AAA last year. So among that pool of players, he was, truly elite. So I figured that should transfer over to the major leagues. Last year at the major league level, he kind of held his weight with a 97 OPS plus. He was around an average hitter. So I'm kind of banking on his AAA success last year, kind of transferring over to this year at the major league level. And I expect him to be a fairly good player, a fairly good hitter for the Guardians this year, and I think he shows some really good potential for them, and could show why that and could potentially really give the Guardians confidence in how they did in the Aaron Savali trade. But yeah,
Absolutely.
now on to questions.
Yeah, so my question in 2024, Steven Kwan hit 14 home runs and Carlos Santana had a 14 outs above average. Which number will be higher in 2025, Steven Kwan's home run total or Carlos Santana's outs above average total?
That is a great question, and I love that you followed the theme of that both kind of came out of nowhere.
Yep.
Um, I believe in Stephen Kwan's sustainability a little bit more. Maybe it just has to do with him being younger, but also
Mhm.
the standard, I guess, is a little lower to have 14 home runs.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you're asking be like the third, like the the 150th best home run hitter or the best defensive player.
yeah. Um, and yeah, I mean, like just kind of, observing Carlos Santana, like I don't know if he's actually at that level. Um, and Stephen Kwan, like, yeah, I guess I'm inspired by some increases in fly ball rate and pull rate last year. And yeah, I don't know if he'll get to 14, but even still, like he got to 14 and he also missed like 36 games on an
Yeah.
IL stint last year. Um, so yeah, like he could. I see Quan like getting around double digit home runs and maybe Santana going closer to average on outs above average at first base next year. So yeah, that is my answer. I think it's more likely Stephen Kwan. Um, yeah, I think Stephen Kwan will have more home runs than Carlos Santana will have outs above average.
Okay.
My question also involves Carlos Santana.
Okay, let's
Who will
go.
have a higher OPS, Carlos Santana or Kyle Manzardo?
Ooh, okay. Well, I put Carlos Santana last year as, or this year as a top 10 first baseman. I put him, I believe, number 8 on my list. What were the OPS totals last year? Santana was at 748. And real quick, how many home runs would he have hit in Cleveland? Would he have hit more or less than in Minnesota? 20 to 20. They have him hitting 4 more home runs in Cleveland. And Manzardo was at what, like low 700s? Yeah,
Yeah,
703.
703.
Yeah, 703. So, I do like Kyle Manzardo as well. I don't mean to disrespect the pick that you just made. I am going to go with Santana though. I still think that he just is finding, for whatever reason, he just has kept improving over the last like 2 or 3 seasons, just for whatever reason, despite being in his high 30s. I think going back to Cleveland and assuming the role of basically the leader of this team, like the vocal leader of this team, in the place that he's spent most of his career, I think that will uplift him a little bit. I think Manzardo's still got a way to go. I think he'll make improvements. I think he'll be in probably the mid 700s, low to mid 700s. I think Santana will get up there a little bit. So I'm going to go with Carlos Santana.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I didn't mean I didn't want to make it seem like I'm selling Kyle Manzardo to you with my pick. Yeah,
right.
it just happened. Like, they're both first basemen.
Yeah, for sure.
One's been better, one maybe has the potential to do better.
You could also probably see different sample sizes out of the two of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if I had to guess, I mean, I don't know, are they going to put Noel in the outfield? I wouldn't feel great about that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So are they going to DH him? One of them's going to have to DH, right? If they're both going to be in the lineup.
Yeah,
what do they have right now? They have Manzardo DHing. They have Noel on the bench.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see what goes on there. But yeah, that wraps it up for our first division preview. Fun stuff. But yeah, anything more before we wrap this up?
I think that's about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Go check out all the fun stuff in the YouTube channel. Check out the guest playlist. We've had Mark Simon on 4 times. We've had Chris Rose, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, and Jeff Passan all on Above Replacement Radio in the past. Foolish Bailey as well. And so go and make sure to go at least just check out the guest playlist on the Above Replacement Radio YouTube channel. It's all there. So yeah, and follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter @Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram @Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram @Above Replacement Radio for all of the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking about the top 10 starting pitchers in baseball, as well as previewing. Oh, I forgot who we're previewing.
Yeah, I believe it's the NL West.
Previewing the NL West. We will.
If it's not, then now it is.
Then now it is. We will see that.
This conversation is over.